It's Oldhammer art time. Let's go.
First up in today's trip back in time to the late 1980s is this. Some Space Marines, a trio of Space Marines, the Dark Angels, Flesh Eaters, yes Eaters, and the Flesh Tearers. This is a lovely piece. I really like the look of it. I think it's the atmosphere and the colours. So here we can see the Dark Angels in their original black colour scheme. I do prefer it, but that does mean that 3 of the original legions were in black, along with the Raven Guard and the world's most boring Space Marine Legion, the Iron Hands. Now, like a lot of the artwork of Marines from this time, their Legion or chapter logo is really small, only taking up a fraction of the area on the shoulder pad. Does anybody know why that is? At the bottom of the Dark Angel's shoulder pad are little skulls. Is this the beginning of the Warhammer 40,000 skull fascination? It's certainly possible. Next up, it's the Flesh Eaters. Not Tearers, but the Eaters. They have another lovely logo which looks a bit like a little mouth with some blood drops hanging off the teeth. It's fantastic. The logo looks a bit like the Rolling Stones logo to me. You know, the one with the big mouth and tongue. Do you think that was the inspiration? Now there's a little bit of graffiti on the Flesh Eater's shoulder pad, and it says, "Pray for death." Was this a reference to the John Carpenter movie Prince of Darkness? There's a scene where a dead man made of bugs, says this, and then his head falls off. It's wonderful stuff. Go and watch it if you haven't already. Next up, it's the Flesh Tearers. Now these Flesh Tearers are a little different to the Flesh Tearers of today that we all know and love. These ones are in all black, unlike the red and black of today. Is there an in-universe reason for the colour change, or was it just a retcon? If you know, then please let us all know in the comments below. I do think this time I prefer the newer scheme, and I have to admit, once upon a time, I considered painting a force of Flesh Tearers, and then I remembered I don't like Red Marines. Funny that. Now, interestingly, at first, I thought this old logo was the same as the current one, but it's not, is it? The new one has a blood drop in the centre, and this one has what? Just a circle? I'm Marcel, and this is Snakeworks. So today's big question is, which is the best Blood Angels successor chapter? There are quite a few good ones to choose from. Let us all know your choice in the comments below. Now this is a great picture. I think it's wonderful. Once you notice certain things in it, it brings a smile to your face. First off, we need to decide who these people are. Are they Imperial Guardsmen, random humans, or are they orcs? They look like they could be any of them. Now, I'm not sure who our main characters here are actually fighting against, but I think I can see some Marines on the right hand side, but they may or may not be on the same side. If you think you know, then let us all know. So the elephant in the room is that tank turret belly gun. Is he cosplaying as a Gargant? It looks ridiculous, doesn't it? It's perfect for a piece of Warhammer 40,000 art. I do have to wonder, where is the ammo stored for such a device? Does it have a magazine? Or does it have to be loaded one shell at a time like a mortar? The gentleman behind Tank Belly Gun Man has a very interesting helmet style. It has a lot of folds in it, like those French accordion instruments. Well, I think they're French anyway. You used to hear them a lot in the Allo Allo theme tune. The bunker behind probably holds the Guinness World Record of blandest, squarest building ever constructed. It's just a block with a door. I suppose we could argue the 3 pipes are extra details. What's in that thing anyway? Is it a vault? Or some sort of fortress? Now in the skies is an interesting looking craft. This one looks a lot like the original Thunderhawk gunship miniature from Epic. It was basically a brick with a turret and a couple of stubby wings, like this. I hope we see that old design return one day in some shape or form. Alright then people, what do you reckon we are looking at here? Is it an orc? Is it a zombie? Or is it a cyborg? I think it might just be an orc, but you never really know with these old pieces of art. Wondrous pieces that they are. The orc, if that's what it is, has a lovely looking side parting to cover up his bald head. I know this as my uncle had exactly the same haircut when I was a lad growing up. The orc's trousers are sagging around his crotch to his knees. Again, when I was a lad growing up, this was considered fashionable for a time. I hope it's not anymore. Do people still do this? It looks ridiculous. One of the reasons I thought this might be a cyborg or robot is because of those feet. Look at them. Big metal clunkers. The sort of thing we were made to wear at first school in the early 80s. Are they shoes or bionic legs? The orc has a huge bony spike growing out of his shoulder pad. It looks more like something a warrior of chaos would have evolved. Do you think he's been hanging about in the warp, or maybe just offed a chaos lover and stole his shit? The orc has a lot of daggers mounted about his person. Is he a dagger collector? Are they daggers from around the globe or universe? Maybe he's the General Grievous of Warhammer 40,000, collecting the Sensei's daggers.
General Kenobi, your dagger will make a fine addition to my collection.
The orc's skin, especially on his arm, looks to be in bad shape. It looks like it's starting to melt. Is he a victim of a flamer, perhaps? Or, again, did he pop into the warp for a few minutes? Maybe it's just clothing that looks like skin. Now, unusually for an orc, his weapon looks ornate. There's some strange detailing going on there with the handle of that gun. There's also what looks like a snake head on the pommel of what I assume would be a sword or dagger in his other hand.
Now, I've never really had orcs down as the type to have nicely ornate and detailed weapons. They do, however, make lovely fancy pieces of art on the top of their banner poles. Oh, just hit myself in the head there. Logos like the Evil Suns and the Bad Moons logos, and apparently they're just pipes in different directions.
The mature mutant slobbing tortoise is up next for your viewing pleasure. Now this isn't quite as good as a Ninja Turtle, is it? Now on a side note, some of you Americans out there won't know that here in the UK they were not allowed to be called Ninja Turtles as it was considered too violent. We had them renamed Hero Turtles. Luckily, they got their shit together in the end and changed them back to their original ninja name. Now this turtle thing has a bit of a strange face. All the tentacles on there look like a beard made out of seaweed. A bit like the chap in Pirates of the Caribbean. I've forgotten his name. Captain Pugwash or something. This is a strange design, even for Warhammer 40k standards, I feel. I think it would be more at home in the Elden Ring universe, one of the FromSoft games. Now speaking of Elden Ring, I've decided it's the worst of the Souls games. All that open world stuff is just dull. It seems to take forever to get about. The fun of the Souls games was making your way through the dungeons, not wandering about in the wilderness. Now this tortoise has a nose with what looks like a pair of teeth in it. Does it have a second mouth in its nose? I don't think I've seen that done before. In the game, this turtley thing is known as a Ferro beast. The Ferro part is due to them having an appetite for metal. They love to eat all sorts of metal, and if you're not careful, the spaceship you're flying around in. I doubt they named him after the pilot of the dropship in Aliens. In this picture, we can see a lot of Marines. I'm sure we can see that there's more than 1,000. There must be tens of thousands, like Saruman's orcs. I think we're looking at a legion here, perhaps, assuming they are all the same legion anyway. All of the Marines here are nicely organised, nicely lined up. Why do you think this is? Is somebody giving a rousing speech? Are they watching some sort of awards ceremony? Is Starscream having his coronation? I've no idea. Maybe this is the original interpretation of the Ulanor parade. Later versions of it show a lot more detail, but I can see this being a good early representation of it. The building in the centre is quite interesting. It looks very cathedral-like. It's very gothic. Is this the start of the gothic theme for Warhammer 40,000? There's also a couple of what I think are dog heads coming out of the side of the building too, and they remind me of the Thundercat's lair. Thundercat! Ho! The Marine up in our face on the right hand side of the picture doesn't appear to be part of the proceedings. Is he spying? Is this an Alpha Legion operative? Now, can you see those spaceships in the background? Specifically the ones on the left, in silhouette. To me, they look a lot like the Nemesis from the G1 Transformers cartoon. The ship the Decepticons came to Earth in and made into a base under the sea. Lovely stuff.
Now recently there has been an actual Transformer based on the Nemesis. I think it's even called the Nemesis. It's about £200 though, and that's too expensive for a Transformer. What sort of child is going to buy that with their pocket money? David, would you like the Nemesis or a Switch for Christmas? I think you're getting a Switch, mate. What happened to Transformers? They used to be affordable and good quality. Nowadays they're expensive and cheap rubbish. It's disgusting.
Come with me if you want to live.
Now this looks a lot like the hunter-killer robot tank things from the Terminator movies. Were they actually called hunter-killers too? Were both the flying versions and the tanks referred to as hunter-killers? I never did know for sure. I always thought those things were a very nice design, especially when they had that interesting looking chrome finish effect. I like that the machines didn't feel the need to paint their vehicles, although I feel an intelligence would realise painting them matte black for night operations might help conceal them a bit, but I'm no camouflage expert. I myself am a big fan of the Terminator movies. Well, the first two anyway. The third was weird. It felt more like a spoof or comedy. And I actually liked Salvation, even though a lot of people didn't seem to. The fourth and fifth ones were awful. The newest one was so bad. So bad. Now a lot of people, myself included, are holding out hope for a Terminator movie based on the future war, like the clips we see in the first and second movie. Do you think we will ever get one? I think it would be fantastic. Anyway, are we all in agreement this is probably some sort of rogue trader era robot, as opposed to a tank or transport vehicle? I suppose it could be either. The weapon this robot is equipped with is quite a bizarre looking device. It looks like a cross between a power bandsaw and a gun. The last time I saw a power saw, I think, was what Ryan Reynolds was using in Blade Trinity, like a power cheese cutter. I haven't seen that movie in a long time. Walk on by, walk on by. Now who sung that song? I used to listen to that a lot as a kid. Here we have a man leaving town. Why do you think he's leaving? Has he been evicted or exiled? Or is he leaving on a mission? The chap behind with the mohawk, although he's got a mask on, gives me the impression that he's happy to see the back of this guy. Maybe they were rivals. Does anyone remember rival schools? Anyway, so our Walker here, Captain Walker if you will, again looks like Mad Max. They always do. They love adding the asymmetrical shoulder pads. I think the hair looks similar as well. You can't blame them for borrowing him, as they were great movies. Have a look at Max's belt here, specifically the buckle. See that logo? Well, that logo keeps popping up all over the place in this Rogue Trader era art. A man once told me it's actually an old punk band logo, but I couldn't tell you myself. I'm no 1980s punk music connoisseur. If you think you know, then please let us all know. Max is also wearing what appears to be a Space Marines Mark VI shoulder pad on his shoulder. It even has the little tactical arrow and everything, although it looks a bit small. Maybe this guy is a giant. There's a shop or something on the right of the picture, designated with a big wooden sign. At first glance, I thought the sign said twat, but I think it might be an A. A what? A Watto, perhaps? Does he have any young Force-sensitive slave boys working for him?
Now the later Star Wars sequels are out, the new trilogy, the Disney trilogy, I found I don't hate the prequels so much. To be fair, I never thought they were as bad as some people made out, but those recent sequels, my god, they were awful. It started out okay, I think, in 2015 with The Force Awakens. Rogue Trader, I believe, was actually good, but I don't count that in the new sequels. And then The Last Jedi came out. We all left the cinema in shock after that movie. My god, it was awful. Now, speaking of awful cinema, if you're enjoying this video, then please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. That means you, George. If you are enjoying the content here on the channel, then please consider joining us on Patreon, the link to which is in the description below or up here somewhere.
Here we have either the shortest Space Marines ever apprehending a criminal, or the tallest criminal ever. Why are Space Marines doing the work of the local police anyway? I suppose, as this is the Rogue Trader era, that these are just men wearing power armour, as all sorts had access to it back then. It wasn't a super soldier only thing. Well, it isn't now, is it really? Even Sisters of Battle wear their own power armour. The legs on the Marines look different to normal power armour. These ones look more like the cricket pads I used to wear when I used to bat for the Hales team in the late 90s. I think they might even still be in my parents' shed. Probably chewed up by rats and cats now though. The Marines' hands look really weird, really blown up and chunky. When I was a boy, I had weird dreams where my hands blew up like this and it was really uncomfortable. As I got a bit older, I realised it was because I was sleeping on them and cutting off the circulation, and that put an end to that phase. You would usually expect to see Marines carrying bolters as weapons, or disintegration guns in really old art, but these are something else. I'm not sure what these are. Some form of autogun perhaps? The gentleman that's being apprehended looks like your typical generic 80s punk. You used to see them on the TV all the time, but I have to say I don't really remember seeing many in real life. Maybe I didn't frequent the right night spots. The punk appears to be being arrested for his graffiti work. What is he writing there anyway? Marines, lol. I can't make it out. If you know what it's meant to say, then please let us all know in the comments below. There's even some evidence on the floor in the form of the spray can. Maybe it's Chaos Black.
Some incredible artwork there. If you want to see some more Oldhammer artwork, then check out the playlist up here somewhere. And as always, thank you very much for watching.